welcome back to my channel. It has been a very, very long time, and this video has been long overdue. So basically, the last time I posted on my channel was my video about OnlyFans, and I just want to thank everybody who liked and commented on that video. To be 1000% transparent with you, I was gonna give up after that. I'm gonna stop making videos just because I am very burnt out. I just graduated and I thought the burnout would graduate too, but it didn't. So it's been a little hard for me to get a video out. I've tried filming this a couple times before, but all of the encouraging comments. Also, sorry, filming on my iPhone in the car, so apologies for sounds and not the best. This might be one of those videos that you just play in the background, not really for visuals here. All the encouraging comments and even the critical comments that I got really encouraged me to keep up with this. And I've said this at the end of pretty much every video I've ever posted. I want to post more, but I'm gonna start trying. I really want to respond to you guys and just talk about things that I'm passionate about. So that's what this is going to be. Again, really, just I can't emphasize, thank you so much to everybody who's left me a comment. It's not a lot by any means, but to me, it means the world. But before I posted that video, which was a year ago, I posted that last March, I had less than 10 subscribers, and now I have over 50, which is crazy. That means 40 more people found my channel. Who knows, maybe they're all OnlyFans bots, but for real, I got comments, like people last week or 2 weeks ago were leaving me comments, so it's still getting out there, that video, and I wanted to follow up just to clarify on some things. Unfortunately, the most critical comments, I still have the notifications for them, so I can see them in like my YouTube inbox, but they either I didn't delete anything. I don't even know how to do that. That sounded really defensive. But I don't know, the comments that I really wanted to respond to, like the most critical ones, I can't find anymore. But this is just going to be a general response, and just I want to expand upon the topic because so much has changed. Not so much, but a lot has changed since my initial posting of that video. Like in the span of a year, OnlyFans came out and said, yeah, we're not going to do not safe for work content anymore. Then they brought it back, like craziness. And I think just like everything that we've seen with COVID, the OnlyFans bubble has popped. When I made that initial video, it's because my For You page was filled, absolutely filled. Also, I was sort of seeking it out for the video, but my For You page on TikTok was filled with these beautiful women, couples sometimes, promoting other women to sign up for OnlyFans. So it wasn't only women promoting their own OnlyFans, it was women saying, look at this lifestyle I live, look at my beautiful mansion, look at my collection of luxury bags, look at my gorgeous husband, my pool, I live in Beverly Hills, you can have this too, sign up for OnlyFans, link in bio. And the link in bio was a place for other women to sign up for OnlyFans, but under that initial content creator. I don't think I explained this very clear in my previous video, and I did get a comment saying like, how dare you compare OnlyFans to a pyramid scheme? And I mean, pyramid schemes don't call themselves pyramid schemes, right? Like, I'm very into the anti-MLM community, and you won't hear someone working at Herbalife or Monet say that they work for a pyramid scheme. They work for a multi-level marketing company. And the way those things work, they're shaped just like a pyramid. The people at the top make the most money, and they not only get money through the selling of their own products, which is a lot easier to do when you joined first, when you have a large following, but they make money off of people below them. And the people at the bottom, which make up the majority of the pyramid, hardly make anything. Definitely not enough to justify what they are doing. Okay, So that's that. I did get a comment saying like, really bad comparison. And you know what? It was. That whole video, if you go back on my channel, like I used to really script things and sit down and I didn't even show my face. Like I had videos and B-roll and all that stuff. And now we're sitting in my car and I'm filming on my phone. So production quality. But yeah, in the future, I do want to do some more, like, not necessarily stream of consciousness, like I do have a set list of things I want to discuss in this video, but it's just going to be more casual. And in the future, I'd like to go back to making those formal video essays once this stuff up here clears up. All right, so that was that. I just wanted to go over. That was not the thesis of my video. I'd say the thesis, well, I focused on what I thought was very predatory acts that these OnlyFans stars, these OnlyFans superstars, were doing in order to make more money off of vulnerable, impressionable, emphasis on vulnerable. Like COVID made so many people who weren't financially insecure not become financially insecure. Like people who perhaps are living paycheck to paycheck, so they weren't in the most financially secure place in their lives, but now they don't have a job, they didn't have any paycheck. So you have this influx of people who are desperate, and I'm not saying that, you know, only desperate people do sex work, but you know, a lot of desperate people do. And I think a lot of people capitalize off of that. Not just OnlyFans, of course. So many crazy bubbles popped up during COVID, real estate, NFTs, like all these crazy things. And OnlyFans, unfortunately, overwhelmingly affected women. And I think is such a good starting point for talking about radical feminism. All right. So next thing that I want to emphasize here. So I consider myself a radical feminist. And I know some people may raise an eyebrow at that because it seems like all the rad femmes on TikTok and Twitter, all they do is be TERFs, which stands for trans exclusionary radical feminists. I swear, like, total clowns. So many of they are tarnishing the rad femme name. I'm not a TERF. That is a whole nother topic for another day, talking about trans women's issues, which, by the way, sex work affects trans women too. So I can't possibly ever consider myself a TERF, but I do consider myself a radical feminist in that I think the liberation of women can only be achieved through the complete upheaval of our social structures. You can't have feminism doesn't work in the systems we have in place now, which includes, you know, capitalism, patriarchy, and all those lovely systems that we have. So it's big. There's big ideas, and it will probably never happen in my lifetime, the liberation of women, but that is where I'm coming from. That is my framework when I discuss these issues. So that's an opposite to, that sounded really eloquent. In opposition to the sort of liberal feminist perspective where it's equality is what is sought after. And I just don't think that works. First of all, I don't want what men have. I don't think what men have in our social systems is all that great. So I don't want that. And it works in some aspects, like sure, equal pay. Yes, that's something where you want equality, but when you talk about total liberation, that's not where I think we need to end. So that's where I'm coming from in that regard. And the next thing I want to emphasize, because most people understood that I was not shaming sex workers in my video, but it's really hard to talk about these subjects and to be anti-sex work without sounding like a far-right Christian moral police force saying, oh, well, sex work is bad and sex work is immoral. Like, that's not what I'm saying. The reason why I think sex work is bad is because it so often exploits women. And it is a tool of power that is used over women. And that was sort of the thesis of my last video, that the normalization of sex work, and not just the normalization on the consumption and production side, like it's like, oh yeah, everyone you know is a porn star now. That's absurd. That's crazy that everyday people are just making porn. And secondly, that everyone is just expected to consume porn too. Like, that's the normalization of it. And not just that, but the glamorization. Like, not only is it completely normal and a viable way of life, it's also great. It also makes so much money, where I live in a Beverly Hills mansion. I am so happy in my life, and so on and so forth. So that was my issue with it. And I think that the normalization and glamorization of it has allowed for young, vulnerable women who otherwise would never have considered becoming sex workers without putting much thought into it, and are now suffering some consequences because of that. Again, I'm not saying that women who do sex work are evil and immoral, and I think that they're horrible people. That's not what I'm saying. I respect sex workers, and my only wish in this world when regards to sex work is that every single sex worker is safe, happy, and healthy. And if they truly want to do sex work, not because they have to for whatever reason, because they need money, because someone is forcing them to do it, or for the number of reasons that women are forced to do sex work. By the way, you don't need to have a gun to your head to be forced to do something. I hope that they are happy and healthy. I support sex workers, of course. I think sex work should be decriminalized in efforts to support sex workers, but I do not support the sex work industry. So I'm gonna probably repeat that a few times throughout this video, because I do not want this message to be lost. I don't want people to think I am this, holier than thou person who thinks sex workers are dirty and shameful. I don't think that. And I'm actually sex positive, and it's hard for when I make this argument. I used to make TikToks, and I stopped because I got half support, maybe a little bit more than half support, and unfortunately my TikToks wound up on the wrong side, and I had a bunch of men thinking that I was, a trad wife or something, so I just needed to get off there. So I'm not like, women need to get back to their moral values, and women no sex. Women sex with husband. That's not what I'm saying. I'm extremely sex positive, and I do think that the sexual liberation movement has so much to do with the feminist movement, second wave feminism, and the sexual liberation movement. Were hand in hand when that was happening. So I do think sexual liberation of women is important. I don't think we achieve sexual liberation through normalization of sex work. Next point about that is, and I mentioned this in my video, unfortunately, so much of when I was making TikToks about this, I got this comment a lot. Someone even said to me, it's not feminist to be in other women's business. And it is. If you are a feminist, you care about what other women do. Unfortunately, we need a more clear definition of what feminism is. I can't even freaking define it. To me, it's, liberation of women. But even that, what does that even mean? Unfortunately, in this era, which I think some people have defined it as like a post-feminist era, and they do this for other things too, post-racial, post-gay, post all of these things, where liberals pretend like we're in some fantasy land where feminism is achieved, racism doesn't exist, everyone lives in harmony. We don't live in that world. So for people to say feminism is letting women choose what she wants to do, that's not what it is. Because if a woman chooses to do something that is hurtful to other women, that's not feminist. I don't care if she chooses to do it. If she chooses to lead a brigade against equal pay or equal voting rights, that's not feminist. She's not a feminist girl boss. So, and this phrase has been beaten to death, but your actions do not exist in a vacuum. So even if a woman chooses to do sex work, which I believe, and I will argue, very rarely happens. I mean, yes, and I got a comment like this, I'll try and post it up, and it started off with, well, women have free will. Yeah, everybody has free will. But like I said earlier, you don't need to have a gun to your head to be forced to do sex work, okay? Especially when there's loads and loads of content being promoted to you saying sex work is viable and and you can make tons of money from it. And the amount of 16, 17-year-old girls I've seen posting about, I can't wait till I turn 18 so I can make it OnlyFans, like, that's not informed consent. That is not, to me, a true choice. No choice was made there. That was coercion, that was grooming, that was whatever you want to call it. So for women for so-called, choice feminists to come out here and say, well, if she's choosing to do it, that's feminist and you should mind your business. No, I will not mind my business about that, because that's not feminist. The sex work industry is not feminist. I don't care if there is a woman CEO at Balesa Co. making the porn, directing the porn. It's not. And that is just the fact of the matter. And I think a lot more people need to come to terms with that. And again, like, it's really hard to make this argument and for people to understand that I'm also sex positive. But there are so many ways to be sex positive and to encourage women's sexuality and embrace and celebrate women's sexuality without pornography, without sex work, without camming, without OnlyFans. I definitely should have sound tested this before I filmed, because the AC 90-degree weather, I'm sorry, I lowered it. So hopefully you made it this far and are still listening. Another comment that I got, which, my bad, this was not, race was hardly discussed. I barely scratched the surface about race and class when it comes to sex work, but I made a little editor's note in my previous video when I was talking about these two overarching understandings of sex work, where one is that sex work is a crime, it's immoral, and needs to be punished. Sex workers need to be punished. And the other thing, that sex workers are fun and cool and flirty and whatever. And I put a little editor's note in just to throw that out there to let people think about it. It's that the first kind of sex work is often associated with women of color and poor women. It's the poor women, it's the marginalized women of the world that are associated with the bad kind of sex work. And the good kind of sex work are like these glam, cute, rich white girls. And I got a comment saying like, oh, well, I've seen the trashiest white prostitute, and I've seen the most high-end black escort. And it's like, that's not what I was saying. Like, that was a strange comment, but I get it. Like, I really just threw that in there and didn't emphasize. But you can't talk about sex work without talking about race and class. And you can't talk about anti-racism and racism against black women and other women of color without talking about how they have historically been hypersexualized, hypermasculinized because of that. And just looking at the history of the United States, like the myth of the black woman being this hypersexual, like mythological creature who is promiscuous, and the idea of like even the welfare queen more recently in our society is seen as this like promiscuous woman who has loads of kids with different fathers, and it's a mythological creature that we think exists in society. And that has to do with race and class. We're talking about poor, black, and other racial minorities, women. And that has a lot to do with how we understand sex work. And also, like, think OG Playboy bunnies, early Y2K as well, like the girls next door, cute little blonde, like that is who the glam sex work is. So I wasn't here saying like there's no women of color and high escorts. Of course there are, and of course there's like regular white streetwalkers. Like I think if you have critical thinking you could have gotten that. But I don't think that was me. And I'm not saying that the person who commented that didn't have critical thinking skills, but I'm saying a lot of what I'm talking about is nuance. And unfortunately, sex work is a moral issue. And like so many of the moral issues discussed in the US, also outside the US, but it's seen as very black or white. It's either good or bad, it's this or that, it's one thing or the other. So it's hard for people to understand that I am sex positive, but I don't like the sex work industry. Now, this, I am going to try my very best to insert. This was a draft that I made of a TikTok when I first started talking about this issue, when I noticed that so many women were promoting this OnlyFans referral program, encouraging other women to join OnlyFans. And from that, so all these new women were joining OnlyFans and they had no following because they were just regular ass people. And that's the thing. It's just like a pyramid scheme or an MLM or whatever you want to call it. The top earners, they are, when it comes to a regular MLM, and I'm not saying that OnlyFans has an MLM business model, because it doesn't. Anyone can join. You don't need to join up under someone like traditional MLMs. I was just saying it's like an MLM in that way, where there's people at the top who make a lot of money, most of the money, and everyone else. And I'm not saying you can't make any money in those middle levels. Someone left a comment saying that the average monthly subscriptions that people earn is like under $200. And someone responded to that saying they make most of their income from tips, which is interesting. I didn't think of that, because you can buy a subscription rate to someone's OnlyFans and then you can tip them. But that's like, when they say, yeah, let's just pay waitresses and servers like $2 and they'll make tips. Like, no, we need to get that minimum rate up. And if they want tips, they can get tips. So anyway, the thing with that is the people at the top, the reason it works is because they have a large following already. They are already well-established porn stars or some other kind of adult entertainer. They have done camming for a long time and now they make an OnlyFans, or they are social media influencers. Like, I'm thinking about Tana Mojo, Trisha Paytas, Bella Thorne. They already had a huge following of people who were interested in their bodies. I mean, the same would go for any celebrity. If any celebrity who had a following, I was going to say Emma Chamberlain. That is the first person I came to mind. If Emma Chamberlain made an OnlyFans tomorrow, that would blow up. It would blow up because people want to see famous people naked. That's it. Like, that's why it works. So when this bubble was happening and all of these regular ass women like me, what do I have? 50 subscribers on here? Like, the people who would be subscribing to my OnlyFans are like creeps that follow me because like they saw me at a football game in high school, like boys I went to middle school with. Like, I do not have the following for that. And the same went for all of these other women. They did not have a following and it was not viable for them. So what they would do is there were these crazy hypersexualized trends that were happening on TikTok, which, by the way, were being imitated and copied and done over and over and over again by young girls, teenagers. I think someone also left me a comment saying like, well, then parents need to parent better. And it's like, sure, yeah, that, and also why is this content happening? Anyway, all these trends were happening where women, because they had no following, were trying to get their social media presence up on TikTok by doing these absolutely absurd trends. And one of them that I made a video about was like, if I was tied up in a room and I couldn't say no, what would you do? And it's like, that's terrifying. And the amount of people who are recreating that trend, and I was like, what are you doing? Like, this is crazy. This is, I'm maybe people think I'm overreacting, but like, that's if you are truly a feminist, that should scare you. Seeing that that's a trend should scare you. And looking at the comments of what men were commenting should scare you. And it should scare you that that is normalized, that anyone could just make that content. And it's totally fine. It's not like if you saw that, I don't know, 20 years ago, it'd be like, okay, this woman's into BDSM, that's all right. Like, but that's not on the front page of the internet, right? Okay. So when I made that video, I responded to it a bunch of times, and TikTok, not a video. And I was talking about how men, people in power, love that. They love that we are sexually empowered. And I literally got a comment, which I will try and find and post here, from a man who said something along the lines of, yep, I love you feminists. Like, it's just free content from all these honeys.
Some of my favorite comments left by men on my past 3 videos. To say the least, it's been a shit show. Here's the first one. Off topic, but I love how the women under this sound act like we would do anything besides rob them and make them clean the house. Female empowerment just means better free content from all these honeys. This one. I must say, I was objectified by a woman today, and I loved it. I never do that to women, though. I know they sick of it. I love the attention. Blah, blah, blah. I'm a hole. Okay, so this one is answering the if you had 24 hours with me and I couldn't say no. This one isn't particularly bad. I just thought it was funny. I would show her a bunch of classic movies and tell her she wasn't allowed to go on her phone. Wow, you are just so wholesome for saying something that isn't rapey. And the last one, my ultimate favorite. Ah, yes, blaming men for all the bad things in life again. Responsibility's a scary thing.
And that is the point I really want to drive home. That at the end of the day, women as a whole are not benefiting from this. We're not. And that is the issue with personal empowerment over complete liberation. If a woman feels personally empowered by doing porn, by making an OnlyFans, bravo to her. But she can't turn around and tell me that what she's doing is helping. That what she's doing, I need to let her be because she's a woman. So therefore what she's doing just has to be feminist, right? So that is what I took issue with. I still feel like this video is all over the place, so I'm going to wrap it up soon. But just to go over some main points here. This is like an essay. We're going to go over all the main points at the end. This is my conclusion paragraph. I am in support of sex workers. I do not support the sex work industry. 2, I think the sexual liberation movement and the sexual positivity movement needs to move away from porn. Needs to move away from adult content. It needs to be its own thing, because that is so vital and so important to feminism and how women will feel more free and will become equal. That it needs to be its own thing. We cannot keep tying these two things together because they are not on the same. They have different goals. They have different outcomes. The sex work industry is not doing anything to help women. It's not. The sexual liberation movement is. So they cannot coexist. I don't think they can work alongside each other. And lastly, I have seen this argument a lot where sex work, it's just work. It's like any other job. And I used to be one of those people that I think I've even said that before. I agree with that in the sentiment where, like, we shouldn't be shaming sex workers. We shouldn't think of them as any different than a laborer or someone who uses their body in exchange for money, as you would in any job. But now that I think about it, like, I think that argument is kind of dehumanizing, or it's very it boils down sex work into something much, much smaller than it actually is. And that is, and I said this in my first video, it's not just work. I mean, listen, I worked in food service and I still, I have trauma. I have that, if you've ever worked any type of job, really, there is mental exhaustion. You can develop anxiety. Like, listen, if you have ever worked food service, retail, any sort of front-facing customer service job, you know the mental and sometimes physical toll that these jobs can have on you. And to say that that is the same as doing sex work, it's just not. Like, yes, it's all of those things, but if I work at McDonald's, that is something I can put on my resume. That is something I can, despite all that I went through, I can get another job from that. That is not the same for sex work. And to say that it is, it's like, do you even know what sex work is? There's no stigma for people who work in the military. There's no stigma for laborers, for people who use their bodies in other ways. Like, it's also, there's a sexual labor included in that. The act of interacting with people in sexual ways day in and day out cannot be compared to another job. So that also is an interesting concept, but to also consider the consumers of sex work, the consumers of pornography. Yes, women consume that too, but it's men. And this goes back to my main point, like the normalization of the consumption of this. Yeah, let's let everyone watch porn. It's completely normal. Even if you're in a committed monogamous relationship, you need to let him watch porn. And if you're not, you're insecure. Like, and yeah, when I say no to that, it does sound like, because I'm repeating almost the same arguments that like these religious people do, but it's not. It's progressive almost. It's almost like whatever. All right, I need to get a coffee. This is my slow return, my soft return to YouTube. I would very much love to continue talking about this on my channel, but also I'd love to talk about I was gonna mention one last thing. So if you know what the manosphere is, basically like all of these alpha male podcasters that go around giving men advice about how to interact with women, how to date women. There's this one man, I don't remember his name, but I will write his name here. He's bald. And I have seen this man everywhere, and he's always he says the most abhorrent things and terrifying things. Turns out he's being investigated for sex trafficking allegations, human trafficking allegations, because what he would do is coerce women to join these content houses where they were essentially camming mills or OnlyFans mills. He would force these women to make pornographic content in these houses. So he was a pimp. So let me just say, this is what I'm talking about. While on the surface, it's all woohoo, sex positivity, like go out there and make that porn and make his pockets hurt and get all that money. This is what's happening. This is the iceberg. You know, at the top it looks fun and sexy and cool and yeah, sex positivity, so happy. At the bottom, it's men like him who are using this opportunity of more women joining the sex work industry, joining OnlyFans, to exploit them. So that's that. Again, last time I'm gonna say it, but like, sex workers, I love you, I support you, I hope you are happy and that is what you want to do. And if it's not what you want to do, I hope you have the ability to do what you really want. I will support sex workers till the day I die, because I will support women, every single woman, to the day I die, but I will not support the sex work industry. And that's that. So yeah, thank you again for everybody who commented on my last video and inspired me to make this new one. Yes, I'd love to talk about this topic, but also other feminist topics. if you go back on my channel, I also used to talk about media and like media analysis. I'd also love to do that. I used to do like a feminist critique or feminist lens of media analysis. Check those out. And yeah, which that can be applied to anything. Like, I made a video about the Travis Scott burger and the Charli D'Amelio drink and the different receptions. So that was one example. But like stuff like that. Like, I love pop culture. I love popular media, and I love feminism, or I am a feminist. I don't know if I love feminism, like, who loves social movements? I don't know. But anyway, again, thank you so much. I'm sorry if this was all over the place. I'm sorry I was blasting my AC in the beginning because I was hot. But anyway, okay, bye. Thank you.